I've also been a part of the Maryland Rifle Club and Maryland State Rifle Team since I was 11. We shoot semi-automatic AR-15s, and my personal rifle is a Bushmaster. Because of this, I have become eligible for various shooting scholarships around the country to a wide array of even the most prestigious colleges that have shooting teams. Achieving stricter gun control laws would obliterate any opportunity I could have had to attend a decent college on a shooting scholarship. Ever since I first learned how to shoot, the issue with gun violence around the nation became clear. Guns are not the problem, people are. Purging our society of violence and murder cannot be done through gun control legislation. By signing this legislation, you are not signing away gun violence, but instead liberating American citizens of our constitutional rights. You are not eliminating guns from society, but eliminating our ability to protect our lives, liberty, and pursuits of happiness. Chicago, Illinois has had some of the strictest gun control laws in America enacted for the past few years, and it is currently more than twice as likely for you to be killed in Chicago as in the Afghani War. For the past 11 years and 4 months in the Afghani War, 2,166 people have been killed. Now in only 8 years in Chicago, 4,265 people have been killed, and 3,371 of them were from being shot. Is that really something we want to model our state laws after? Now, even of those 3,371, only 37 were killed with a rifle, which is barely 1%. 98% were killed with a handgun, so creating gun control legislation that targets assault rifles has statistically proven to only weed out less than 1% of the problem if you're lucky. I'd also like to point out that none of the guns used in the Chicago shootings were registered or licensed to the people who use them, thus even further proving that simply restricting guns will not stop criminals from using them, nor will restricting guns stop criminals from harming others in general. On December 14th of 2012, the same day as the Sandy Hook shooting in central China, a man stabbed 22 children and 1 adult. Guns are not needed for mass murder, and robbing American citizens of our rights to own them won't solve anything. You must also consider the fact that the majority of gun violence occurs in low-income neighborhoods. Raising the overall cost of owning a gun through higher licensing and registration fees denies the ability of low-income individuals to protect themselves against the crime focused in the areas they live in. Passing this legislation would be discriminating against these lower-income individuals who are actually at a higher risk of being victimized in crimes. To abolish or severely limit the right of the Maryland residents as a whole to bear arms, which is the intent of the proposed legislation, is to essentially defeat the purpose of our own U.S. Constitution. The entire foundation of the United States was formed on the principle that the government, our government, is a government of the people, for the people, by the people, and taking away the people's right to bear arms is taking away the people's power in the government. The Second Amendment, which grants to citizens the right to secure their natural rights, is the backbone of our democratic society. I hope you all consider these points as you go to vote on this or any other gun control bills.
Of tragedy, there's often a knee-jerk reaction to take away rights, but this will never be the solution. It's time for final thoughts. The community of Santa Fe, Texas is still processing the horrific massacre that left 10 people, 8 students, and 2 teachers dead. Now is the time for healing, for togetherness, for prayer. It's not the time to use this tragedy as a political prop for gun control, but the left can't help themselves. And to paraphrase Rahm Emanuel, we'll never let a good tragedy go to waste. No one wants to see bullets tear through classrooms, but the cold, hard truth is not a single proposed gun control measure could have stopped what happened at Santa Fe High School. The shooter, whose name is not worth mentioning, used a shotgun and a revolver he took from his father. He didn't use a so-called assault rifle. He didn't legally purchase the guns he used. He's underage. He also had a pressure cooker and pipe bombs. Please tell me what gun laws could have prevented this. None. So why then is the left so quick to blame this on law-abiding gun owners and the NRA? What did we have to do with this? Nothing. The fact is, if you're demanding more gun control, you're admitting the hundreds of relevant gun laws on the books don't work. How would coming up with 1 or 1,000 more solve the problem? It wouldn't. But they know that. They aren't interested in a few more laws. They're interested in eliminating the Second Amendment altogether. That's their real goal. And even that would solve nothing. You can seize all the guns you want, but truth is, there will always be evil in this world, and evil people will always find evil ways to carry out evil things, which is the exact reason why many of us choose to be armed. It's not about how much we love our guns, it's how much we love the people we protect with those guns. Yet, every time something like this happens, that's the first and only solution the left can come up with. Take away rights because it sounds good and makes you feel like you've done something, when in reality, the only thing it would do is leave safe and sane Americans defenseless. The only way to make sure our kids and families are safe is for good guys to have guns. Imagine how much worse things could have been at Santa Fe High School if the school resource officer and Texas Department of Public Safety trooper hadn't been there armed and able to engage the shooter. The same can be said about Mark Dallas, the school resource officer who stopped a school shooting in Dixon, Illinois last week. These safety measures are the way to protect kids at school. That's why we have armed guards at some of our banks, jewelry stores, and even red carpet events. So why don't we have that at our schools? We need to look at our families also. Guns have been around for hundreds of years, but we've seen a spike in routine mass shootings like this in the last 20. So what changed? The American family. The rise of absentee parents and the breakdown of the American family has absolutely contributed to this epidemic. I get it. It's easy to go after guns. That's the low-hanging fruit. It's much harder to take a look at society and admit where we've gone wrong. It has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Those are my final thoughts from LA. God bless.
Tomorrow marks 3 weeks since the Parkland school shooting, and many voices have emerged in the fight for tougher gun laws, including many of the students of Stoneham Douglas High School.
They say that tougher gun laws do not decrease gun violence. We call BS!
Our politicians are cowards, and they won't. They won't gather the strength even to stand up to the NRA like Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, or Donald Trump.
Senator Rubio, it's hard to look at you and not look down the barrel of an AR-15 and not look at Nicholas Cruz.
Oh, tough moments. But one student that you may not have seen in all this coverage has a different point of view, and he feels that that point of view has been ignored in all of this. Kyle Kashuv is a 16-year-old junior at Stoneham Douglas. He's a conservative and a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. Kyle, thank you for being here tonight. Just as your fellow students have every right to have their voices heard, you also have a right to hear your voice heard. Not to dwell on it, but tell us what your experience was that day. Where were you when it started?
So I was in an adjacent building. So I was in the classroom. There were 20 minutes left. We just heard the fire alarm ring. So we were walking outside. I was towards the end of the group because I grudgingly didn't want to go out. All of a sudden we heard an announcement that said that we had to leave, so I evacuated. And we heard 2 little pops, and I thought they were textbook falling. So we quickly ran into another room. And then we hid there for 2 hours until SWAT came to take us out.
Yeah, awful. And you feel that your perspective on this issue is worth having everyone here as well. Tell me about it. What is it?
Well, my perspective is that we have to focus first on what we can achieve, and that is bipartisan change. That is mental health restrictions and deeper background checks. The debate on gun control should be a broader discussion that we needed to have after we can secure our schools. That is a priority.
So you feel, and Andrew Pollack, whose daughter Meadow died at Parkland, he was here last night, and he has the same perspective. It's not that he doesn't ever want to talk about that, but he wants to pass things that you feel can be passed first, right?
Yes, ma'am. I think that's absolutely paramount. We have to make sure that we secure our schools first and make sure this will never happen again, and only then can we have the gun control debate.
I want to play David Hogg, who has been out there a lot. He's become, sort of very familiar to Americans. Here he is speaking out for on his side. Watch this.
I actually hung up on the White House the other day. They actually called me the day before the listening session and asked if we were going to come. And I said, I'm not coming because we expect President Trump to come to the CNN town hall. And I ended on this message with them. I said, President Trump, we don't need to listen to President Trump. President Trump needs to listen to the screams of the children and the screams of this nation.
What do you think about that, Kyle?
I'm really trying to control my anger at what he said. Because, the president calls you and it shows he wants to make a change, and you're talking about bipartisan change, and the one man who controls, who leads our nation, comes to you and is like, look, let's do something, let's make it happen, and you hang up the phone on him. That's so hypocritical. David Hogg was like, we have to make a change, let's make this happen, and then the White House calls you and it was like, let's do it, I totally agree, let's make the change, and then you hang up on him and then you brag about it on national television. It's extremely counterproductive.
Have you talked to him? Have you told him how you feel about all this?
I haven't talked to David Hogg about this, no.
What's your hope for the immediate change? I know the legislation's going through Florida right now.
Well, I'm really hopeful because right now I see that a lot of positive legislation is being passed. We see that mental health restrictions are getting in place and deeper background checks. And I really think that it represents how non-divided our country is and how decisive we can be.
Kyle, thank you. We're sorry for what happened to you and all your friends and everything at your school. And we're glad that you have a chance to get your feelings out there about how you feel